Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Highlight Haven NFL Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by Josh Wolliver of Josh's Sports Report to preview Super Bowl 59. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great, Matt. We got a weekend off during the Pro Bowl, a couple foam pit backflips, and let's go for Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles, the big 59. We're one away from 60. I'm hyped, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm hyped too. Not necessarily, obviously, the matchup that I wanted looking at it 2 weeks ago, but here we are. Can't complain. Super Bowl's obviously always amazing. Did you watch the Pro Bowl last week?
I watched a couple of the highlights, but no, I didn't. I did not
Yeah.
sit down there for a. Well, I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
What was there like? It's like 120 combined points. I mean, it's like a
Yeah,
basketball game scoring wise.
I think I watched it in, like, the background for a little bit of whatever I was doing,
Yes.
but no, I did not pay really any attention to that.
Yeah.
And, before we get started with the recap, I know you have the injury report up and ready, so can you kinda break that down?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple key things to look at for both sides. From the injury perspective, for the Eagles, the big thing is Devonte Smith, not a full participant in today's practice, and this is coming off a week where he did not practice at all last week. Big thing to note there due to a hamstring injury. So that was something that they said was lingering after the Washington game. As they went down to New Orleans, he wasn't feeling great, and obviously with a week off. Um, with a week off. Thanks. Appreciate Timothy in the chat. Anyone else in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Drop things down in the comments. But with a week off, they decided to play it safe, let him rehab and get back to 100%, which still is not there yet. Head coach Nick Sirianni had this to say. He said, "The guys are doing everything that they possibly can to get themselves ready to go. And I will never put limitations." So that was that from the of things, but not injury related, but still something to look at for the Eagles. Jalen Carter, who left practice early and did not attend yesterday's media conference due to an illness, and the team has not given a word yet on that severity. Chiefs punter Matt Ariza has popped up on the injury report as well with a sickness. He left today's practice early, but he's also the team's holder. So a couple things there too for the Eagles, one for the Chiefs. That's all we've got from the injury side of things.
Yeah, really do appreciate that, Josh. Now, let's get into the recap, obviously, for this game. And, of course, Eagles versus Chiefs in New Orleans. Chiefs 1.5 point favorites. This game, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, Philadelphia is on a tear recently. They are 15-1 in their last 16 games. However, they did not get to play the Chiefs at all during the regular season. This will be the first time they face this season, obviously. In terms of some regular season stats, the Eagles averaged 179 rushing yards per game this season, which was the second most of any team in the NFL, just behind the Baltimore Ravens. And they allowed just 278 yards per game this season, which was over 30 yards less than the next team on the list. They also gave up just under 18 points per game, which is the second least of any team, right behind the Los Angeles Chargers. And they allowed, I believe, the second fewest, or my fewest passing yards of any team this season. So they obviously have a really good defense, and their run game was amazing this year, obviously led by Saquon Barkley, who averaged 143 scrimmage yards per game, 15 total touchdowns during the regular season. Saquon has 5 straight games with over 100 scrimmage yards and has scored 5 touchdowns throughout his last 2 games. A.J. Brown was struggling towards the end of the season and to start the playoffs, but he is coming off a 96-yard receiving game with a receiving touchdown, obviously, against the Commanders. Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown an interception in his last 9 games. Devonte Smith, who I know you just mentioned on the injury report, has averaged just over 40 receiving yards throughout his last 3 games. He's been struggling a little bit recently. And in terms of the Chiefs, Mahomes hasn't thrown an interception in 8 straight weeks. So we have a quarterback who hasn't thrown an interception in 8 straight weeks, and then a quarterback who hasn't thrown an interception in 9 straight weeks in Jalen Hurts. However, Mahomes has fumbled 1 time in each of his last 2 games. And 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember this, a major reason why Philly ended up losing um, to Kansas City is because of that Jalen Hurts non-contact fumble that he
Oh,
had
yeah.
that was returned to the house by Nick Bolton. So Mahomes, I wouldn't expect him to throw an interception in this game, but fumbles are definitely going to be something that he has to limit. Even just one fumble could be the deciding factor in this one. Kansas City allowed just 19 points per game, which was the fourth fewest of any team in the NFL. So that's kind of interesting. We have the team that allowed the second fewest points per game this season, and then the team that allowed the fourth fewest points per game this season. Defense, I guess, really does win championships. And Travis Kelce, coming off one of the worst games of his year, he had just 2 receptions, 19 receiving yards last week against the Buffalo Bills. If Kelce doesn't get involved in the offense, I think that the Chiefs' chances of winning go down to under 10% because
Whoa.
Kelsey has been the main guy for this Chiefs offense, for their receiving offense, obviously, besides Mahomes. Um, he's been Mahomes' main target for years and years and years. And even if he doesn't have as great of a regular season like he didn't this year, he didn't have a great regular season last year either. He always delivers in the playoffs, and that's always a reason why Kansas City is able to get it done in the playoffs, why they have won 2 straight Super Bowls. Kareem Hunt has 1 touchdown in each of his last 4 games. The other running back for Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, has averaged just under 19 rushing yards in his past 4 games. I just gave you, some of my thoughts. Josh, I'll let you share your thoughts now.
Yeah. I think you touched on a lot of the main points. You're absolutely right that the defenses for both sides have been dominant. And something that I found interesting when doing my research on this game is that in back-to-back years, when obviously the Chiefs looking for this three-peat, they were underdogs both times. And now, finally, the NFL has given in, and DraftKings, at least their side of things, they've got the Chiefs as 1.5 point
Mhm.
favorites, as you mentioned earlier. But that was on that was actually something we talked about a lot in the regular season
Yeah.
with the Jets that the odds makers would never give in. But here they are. The Eagles are underdogs. And I'll tell you what, Matt, I think you're absolutely right. Both of these defenses have been magnificent. No matter what you look at, Patrick Mahomes, you look at Saquon Barkley, who is going to be an MVP candidate, or who will finish in the MVP voting. Neither of those guys are where they are. Neither of those guys' teams are where they are. If these defenses don't play like they did down the stretch, I mean, they might be, but these defenses, they force takeaways for both sides. Um, They've gone home to the quarterback, especially for Kansas City, and for Philadelphia. I guess when you put up whatever 55 points in the championship game, you don't need that much defense. As for Super Bowls overall, sorry, Matt. 9 of the
Yeah.
last 14 Super Bowls have been decided by one score, but it was really interesting because before these last 14 Super Bowls,
Mhm.
it's actually been since Super Bowl 26, more than three quarters have been decided by one score. But before that, it was rare to find a one score Super Bowl. So kind of interesting how the narrative has changed. I guess it really is the two best teams in the league this day and age. And it sure feels like it, right, Matt? Like maybe you could throw the Lions in there. But if you're telling me Chiefs Eagles at the start of the season is the Super Bowl, I'd say yes, because those are the two best teams in
Mhm.
football. No matter what you look at, right? Regular season, a lot of teams did great. A lot of teams had great players, but the Chiefs have always been able to win when it matters. And we saw the Eagles make their run 2 years ago only to lose to the Chiefs. By the way, on what is one of the worst flags in my opinion in NFL history, that holding it at
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
end of the game that they called. I think they caught Gardner Johnson for the hold, but um, besides the point. That was a great game. Probably should have went into overtime. At least it felt like it deserved to. But yeah, these are the two best teams in the entire league. Matt, I'll kick it back over to you.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the holding. James Bradbury even admitted after the game that
Oh
he
yeah.
did hold Juju Smith-Schuster on that play. Now, Josh has to be happy with the Aaron Glenn hire. Maybe we'll get into that actually when we're done with this recap, talk a little bit about that hire. But yeah, you did make a good point, and this game could go either way. And I know that's an extremely basic statement when you're talking about the Super Bowl and two of the best teams in the NFL. But there's one team that has the best player in the league, obviously, has won two straight Super Bowls, and then the other team with the probably offensive player of the year is the hottest team in the NFL and is has a much better roster on paper. When you actually watch these two teams this season, the Eagles have performed a lot better than the Kansas City Chiefs that hasn't stopped Kansas City from making the playoffs and making the Super Bowl 3 straight years though. We know how Patrick Mahomes elevates in the playoffs obviously every single year. And this is the second year in a row where Kansas City has looked bad in the regular season and people are starting to doubt them. And then this is the second year in a row where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They beat the Buffalo Bills, they steamroll their way through the AFC, and they get to the Super Bowl once again. I mean, we've obviously seen this before. And are you ready to get into some score predictions for this game?
Well, before my score
Mhm.
prediction, Matt,
Yeah.
I want to bring up something that has been floating around the internet. Have you heard of the Kirk Cousins curse, Matt?
You mentioned it to me earlier, and I didn't know what it was. I looked it up, and now I have a brief understanding of what it is.
All right. The way I understand it is
Mhm.
that no quarterback who has ever lost in the regular season to Kirk Cousins. I know this is a conspiracy theory stretch right here. No quarterback ever lost to Kirk Cousins in the regular season has ever went on that season to go ahead and win the Super Bowl. And way back in week 2, when Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat, when this Eagles team couldn't beat the poor Atlanta Falcons, when it looked like this was going to be a train wreck of a year for the Eagles. The Eagles lost in week 2 to the Falcons, and guess who was quarterbacking them? Kirk Cousins. So, by that logic, the Chiefs win this game. But sorry, if you're a true believer in the Kirk Cousins curse, I don't know if it's gonna reign true this time. But it's a good,
Yeah, I
it's a
mean,
good.
mhm. If you really wanna go deeper into it, it happened in 2016 with the Packers, 2017 with the Rams, 2018 and 2019 with the Eagles, 2020, with the Bears, 2020 with the Packers as well, 2021 Steelers, 2021 Packers, 2022 Bills, 2022 Dolphins, 2022 Giants,
Mm.
2023 Packers, 2023 49ers, 2024 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, as you mentioned, the Eagles did lose to Kirk Cousins
So it's
earlier in the
got
year.
some history to it.
Yeah, it's happened every single year for the past 9, 8 years. So I mean, you can say what you want. Does it cancel out if Kirk Cousins gets cut though? Did
At
that
some
cancel
point,
out the first?
maybe it's like it's an order of operations here. PEMDAS, well, it has parentheses around it, man.
Yeah.
You gotta factor that in first. If he's not playing next season, I guess both teams win the Super Bowl then.
Mhm. Maybe. Or the meteor shows up.
Oh yeah,
Or
I mean,
yeah,
he's
or
seeing
that.
those maps.
Mhm. And that's kinda what I'd prefer this year, to be honest. I don't really of course, if there's one team that I'm rooting for, it is Kansas City, um, for 2 reasons. Obviously, I can't take the Eagles winning.
Yeah,
Um, I saw a poll, it was like Commanders fans, would you rather see the Eagles or Chiefs win? And it was like 90% Chiefs. It should have been
yep,
100. I don't know how any Commanders fans would rather see the Eagles win than the Chiefs, obviously. And I think there's an aspect to it where I'm sick of Kansas City continuously winning, but
oh for sure.
this would also be the first three-peat in NFL history, and it's like, okay, we get to witness something that no one else has ever witnessed. we shouldn't be taking that for granted and be complaining that this team is too good or keeps on winning. You know what
All
I'm
right,
saying?
so then let me ask you this. If the
Mhm.
team Kansas City was playing had no affiliation, let's just say the Rams made it all the way. I
Mhm.
don't think you have any bad blood for the Rams. Would you still be rooting for the Chiefs to keep the streak alive?
That's a good
That's where
one.
it gets interesting.
That's a good one. I'd probably root for the Rams. I'd
Yeah.
probably root for the Rams. Um,
Well, good
because
question. Let me hear from you in the
I'd
chat.
rather see change if I could see change, but if that's not a possibility, then I'll definitely go with the thing that is against Philadelphia winning and the thing that, is gonna remain NFL history. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy for a three-peat.
Getting into some food here. What is your Super Bowl spreads looking like? I usually have wings, guacamole, other dips, and chips. Josh, I'll let you start on this one.
My Super Bowl spread, I am a big fan. My mom always makes it on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm a
Mhm.
nachos guy. If
Uh-huh.
you get some good nachos, I mean, you
Mhm.
could basically Timothy, we can make
Yeah.
your spread into one, my friend. We got
Yeah.
guacamole. You
Mhm.
can slice up some chicken. You can make it loaded nachos. Those things, there's never too much loading a
Mhm.
nacho. I guess if you put too much sour cream, could make the chips soggy. At that point, you might have to take it a step backwards. But
Mhm.
my friend, add some pork, add some chicken, add some cheese, add
Mhm.
some guac, salsa, pico de gallo. I mean, you could get into the next food genre with nachos,
Wait,
but I
so
do love your play with the wings there. That's always the classic.
is there anything on a traditional nacho that you don't think belongs on a nacho? Do you like the
Well,
black beans?
traditional nacho, just like your average Joe. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm an all around kind of guy. There's nothing that you're gonna put on a nacho and I'm not
You're a
gonna want.
you're a very versatile guy when it comes to your nachos, right?
Absolutely, I'm a
Yeah.
5'2" leader. I mean, I
Mhm.
can go anywhere. I mean, I wouldn't say anywhere. Let's keep it in the savory department. Once we go sweet, I'm
Mhm.
out. But
I don't
yeah,
really
keep it with wherever you want.
I don't have any foods where I always have it on the Super Bowl. I don't
Mhm.
really have any of those foods, those are some good options, definitely. I'm not much of a wings guy, maybe chili. I think I had chili last year, and I think that's always a solid option on the Super Bowl. Get some chips
Yeah.
with that, you can dip the chips in the chili. That's always a
You know
solid
what?
option, and that can kinda be uh another option that's similar to
Yeah.
a nacho right there.
Yeah, I think chili's a good option, but the one thing you gotta think about with nachos is, I mean, I don't know what your household's looking like on Super Bowl
Mhm.
Sunday, Matt. But if you're on a nice couch in front of the sofa, you do not want to be spilling your nachos on your lap, making a mess with the crumbs. So the
Mhm.
nachos,
Yeah.
while they're versatile, you don't want to be up in the kitchen eating during the
Mhm.
Kendrick Lamar halftime show.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Mhm.
And
Now
I don't know if
Mhm.
sprinting into the kitchen during the timeouts is also your best idea. So while it's a five-tool topping guy, it might just be a one-dimensional kind of guy in the location department. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm taking it a step further. I'm starting to rethink my decision here. I mean,
now now
I might have scouted this
Mhm.
guy a little too high on my draft board.
Now how about, like um
Good question, Timothy. We appreciate it.
Yes, how about any appetizers, you know? Do you have, like, the pigs in a blanket or anything?
Um, I don't have any known traditional appetizers, but kind of same with the nachos. You put it
Mhm.
out there, I'll put it on my plate. I mean, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, whatever you're eating, it's gonna be good. So,
Alright, now
and if you don't have good appetizers, just wait for dessert. It'll
Mhm.
always you always get a
Absolutely.
good dessert for sure.
Now moving over to back onto the game, we got
Yeah.
score predictions. Um, I'll start it off, and I do have the Eagles taking this one. Again, this
Mhm.
is a coin flip. It could go either way. Um, whether I value the team that has been better this year or I value Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, I do think it'll be close, pretty similar to last year. We got 34-32 Philadelphia victory. Um, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it actually goes into a potential overtime situation. I don't know how that would necessarily work with a 34-32 score. Maybe a safety in overtime. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was maybe on a game-winning field goal. Maybe went into overtime. It's going to be a close game. I think I wouldn't be surprised if it feels like one team is controlling it throughout the entire game, but I still think it's going to remain a one possession contest. I still think it's going to be in, reach for either team throughout the entire match.
I'm gonna ask a dumb question here,
Mhm.
and I'm not exactly a math whiz, but I don't really know how to get to 32 in football.
Uh,
I get the
well,
gist, though. I get the gist,
I
though.
mean,
Close
how
game, field
how
goal
do you get to
score.
25 in football last year? It's just
Well, didn't
in
they not kick the extra point?
okay, so maybe there's not an extra point being kicked in this
All
game.
right, okay.
You know what?
Maybe
Like,
they go for two. Maybe, yeah,
it's
you're
yeah,
right. You're right. Sorry.
it's just 35 minus 3, I guess. I don't
Some
know.
Super Bowl magic. Yeah, some Super
Yeah, I
Bowl
mean,
magic.
I wouldn't assume this is a scoregami at all. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait. 35 minus 3. They just missed the field goal.
yeah.
Oh, but missing
Although
doesn't subtract
yeah,
points.
okay, we're not
All
really
right,
doing
that's not
math
the
right
point.
now, but it's
Yeah.
a possibility. I'll check to see if it's a scoregami.
All right. All right. For my pick, Matt,
Mhm,
I'm gonna go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Give me
mhm,
this one's definitely not gonna be a score gummy for you. I'll take 24-17. I think getting really specific here, like we did back in the regular season. I'll say the Eagles. I'll say the Chiefs score late, maybe 3-4 minutes to play. Eagles have it, and they're driving. They have one timeout left, and then they end up getting stopped by, you guessed it, a Steve Spagnuolo masterpiece. And you know what, Matt? I want to bring up something that's really interesting because we've always talked about the Chiefs' dynamic this season as negative. It's always been they're barely escaping one score games. It's always been, yes, they won this week, but no, they won't win next week if they play like this again. And guess what? They always won next week,
mhm,
okay?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
this
absolutely.
team knows how to win close games. And you know what, Matt? We
Mhm,
got to stop looking at that as a disadvantage, as they can't pull away. We got to start
mhm,
looking at it as they know how to grit and grind teams out and they know how to win close games. I just mentioned how close the last what 9 Super Bowls, I think I said. Let me scroll back up. The last 14 Super Bowls, 9 of them have been decided by
mhm.
one score. And we're talking about a Kansas City team who all season has excelled in one score games, Matt. This Kansas City team can use their experience to their advantage here. Let's not turn it against them. Let's have them use it for them. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game all along. Kansas City has battled in these all year. I think that plays right into their hands. And my second point being that Kansas City, they have played good offenses. Sure, they got beat by the Bills, but hey, they beat the Chargers. They beat an offense that I'm very high in Bo Nix.
Mhm,
I get it. What? They had some shenanigans at the end of the game, but
mhm.
back to my first point, they know how to win close games, and that's going to prove to be huge for Kansas City here.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a team that really struggles to win and barely can win. This is a team that has won 11 one-possession games this season and
Correct.
lost 0 one-possession games this season. Timothy Park in the chat has a Chiefs three-peat, 27-24. Eagles kicker misses a game-tying field goal. Rough life for Jake Elliott.
Yeah.
Um, I looked at Scorigami. There's been 3 games in NFL history with 34 to 32 scores. So it wouldn't be a Scorigami.
Okay.
It is a possibility, I guess, somehow for that to happen. Um, but yeah, it's really going to be a toss up. The one thing, can you say your score one more time?
I had 24-17. I think the Chiefs defense is good enough to hold the Eagles under 20. And that's a bold take,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think.
that's the one I don't have any problem with the Chiefs winning this game. If that's what you have, I have a problem with Saquon Barkley-led offense not scoring at least 18 points.
So you're saying higher scoring.
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
higher score. I'd be cool if the Chiefs won, and I think that's a realistic take if that did end up happening, but I just don't see how this team that got, um, 55 against one of the best defenses in the NFL last week, um, yeah, we'll go with that, um, would be held to under 20.
All right, well, Timothy, nice point in the chat. That's
Yeah.
actually
Mhm.
right in my weekly wrap section. But I do think we have to get to key players sooner or
Yes,
later,
we do.
Matt.
Let
If we
me
are ready to go over to there, I am.
Yep,
But before we get there, just want to segue us into our next segment. Matt and I have been working extremely hard. What has been a great regular season. So we thank you
yep,
all so much for watching, your continued support. If you'd like to join in on our discussion, like Timothy has been doing all season, you can hit us up in the comment section. You can call us in with that pinned link in the chat that Matt has posted. So voice your opinions. We'd love to hear them for you. We're willing to talk silly topics like your nacho
mhm,
spread at the
mhm,
Super Bowl and
yes,
whatnot. But
mhm.
Matt, I'll let you start us off on key players. Give me your Chiefs key player first.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, as you mentioned, Timothy Park gets the award for, follower, subscriber,
There
fan
we
of the
go.
year.
Yeah,
Been here since about week 7 when we started doing this, I think it was. But yeah,
sounds
he's been
right.
great this season, showing a lot of support. Now let's get into the key players. For Philadelphia, I have Cam Jurgens in this one. This season, the Eagles were and I was able to interview DVOA creator, Aaron Schatz recently, so that's where I'm getting a lot of this information from. Um, but the Eagles were the most blitz offense in the NFL this season and were the 14th best offense against the blitz according to DVOA. Obviously, 14 not terrible. It is above average, but not great for a team in the Super Bowl, obviously, who is the most blitz team in the NFL. So there's no doubt Steve Spagnuolo will be sending the blitz a lot in this game, an extra amount than typical, and he does send the blitz a good amount on the regular basis.
Yep.
Obviously, Jurgens has not been 100% healthy over the past few weeks, which did limit his playing time last week. I know it limited him against the Packers, I believe 2 weeks ago. If Jurgens can play at a high level and elevate both Philadelphia's passing game and run game, that could ultimately end up being the deciding factor. Because I think the real deciding factor in this game is Saquon Barkley, and I don't want to make him my key player. But what's the key to Saquon Barkley having success? It's Cam Jurgens and the rest of the Eagles' offensive line, but more specifically, Cam Jurgens. Now, before I go over to Kansas City, I actually want to let you do Philadelphia as well, so we kind of stay, on the same page
Yeah.
here.
Well, I just wanted to build a little bit off of your Cam Jurgens key player because I completely agree. I think that's a great take. Um,
Thank
Saquon
you.
Barkley isn't going to do what he's going to do without this Eagles offensive line. There's a reason that this is the year where Saquon Barkley was contending to break the NFL all-time rushing record. He moved from the Giants offensive line, sorry if you're a New York fan, to the Eagles offensive line. And then just a key about this game, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, probably the two most important parts about that offensive line, were
Mhm.
both full participants at practice today, which is a
Yep.
great sign for Philadelphia fans. Cam Jurgens dealing with a back injury, had to get subbed out during that Washington game. Landon Dickerson with a knee injury doesn't seem as severe, but that is an absolutely great sign if you are a Philadelphia fan because you're absolutely right. Specifically in the run game, they will be huge, but even in the pass game, you gotta protect Jalen
Mhm.
Hurts. You mentioned that last 2 years ago, they had the game losing what it would end up being the game losing touchdown. If you factor that out, because of a fumble, because there is pressure in the back. And if they are the most blitz team, you know that Steve Spagnuolo is not letting off that
Yeah.
gas pedal.
Mhm.
But let's go to my key player for the Eagles. And Matt, I don't think I've ever done a key player who we don't know is going to be playing or not. But Brandon Graham is just about as feel good story as it gets. And man, who no matter who wins, I really hope Brandon Graham plays at a high level on Sunday.
Mhm.
He tore his left bicep on November 24th. He thought his season was over. But the Eagles staff encouraged him to quickly start the road to recovery, which he did. And his only shot ever through the entire recovery process was for the Birds to make the Super Bowl. And here they are.
Wow.
He's been participating with the team. Continued to do that today, was not a full participant. Uh, if he does play, you'd have to imagine there will be a snap limitation. If he does play, he will have to wear a brace on that left bicep, where he was or not been met. This is where the bicep tear was, but this is his 15th season in the NFL, and it probably is his last game
Mhm.
as a pro athlete. So I think it's got to be my key player to highlight what a great story this has been. And I really hope he is able to get back out there and play on Sunday. I will be cheering him on, win or lose. Let's go, Brandon Graham. I hope he has a great game.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically the same thing as John Allen, who was supposed to suffer a season-ending injury, except for the fact that John Allen's not that good at football, and the Commanders didn't make the Super Bowl. But definitely rooting for him as well out there, even if I don't want the Eagles to win this one. Now, moving over to Kansas City. I have Xavier Worthy in this one. Worthy didn't have 75 scrimmage yards one time throughout the first 13 weeks of the season. Since then, he's hit that mark 4 times in his last 6 games, according to DVOA. Once again, the Eagles rank just 24th against opposing teams' wide receiver one this season, with Worthy being extremely hot recently, coming off a game with over 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. I would expect him to find the end zone at least once in this matchup. Could see him um, breaking off for a really big play, for potentially a long play. He's obviously the speed threat, fastest 40-yard dash in NFL history. But I think he is a really, really good option for Kansas City in this one. And, I definitely think he will add 6 to their score in this matchup.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the most important thing is, as you mentioned before, that Travis Kelsey really didn't play well
Yeah.
last week.
Mhm.
So if Xavier Worthy is able to step up and he is able to play in what will be his biggest NFL game, as he's just a rookie, uh, especially if Travis Kelsey isn't performing, could you see those numbers getting even higher for Worthy? Could you see him just, carrying the Chiefs receiving game?
Yeah, I mean, he has been he's been a beast all year, and I think Worthy's kind of an inconsistent guy in general. Kelsey's been an extremely inconsistent guy this year. But Worthy is someone where you could see him get obviously he's involved in the run game as well, but you could see him, you know, get maybe 15 scrimmage yards one game, and then the next game he goes off and he gets 60, 90. It's kind of all over the place. And going to this real quick, wow, that's harsh, Matthew. That was about the John Allen comparison. John Allen's making 72 mil a year. Deron Payne's making 90 mil a year. That's the highest paid defensive line duo in the NFL, and they're both being um, outperformed by Cleveland Farrell and Dorrance Armstrong. I mean, that's all you have to say. He's not as necessarily terrible, but when it comes to some of the most underwhelming players on this team and disappointing players, they are at the top of my list.
Yeah, that, that is a harsh one. I'll follow it up with someone who has not been disappointing for
Mhm.
the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk about Nick Bolton. He
Yeah.
led the team this season in tackles with 106 total tackles, breaking that triple digit mark. 73 of those were solo tackles. Talk about a guy that flies all over the place. He is going to be huge in stopping the run, great in pass defense. He gets sent on the blitz every now and then. But with Steve Spagnuolo mixing it up like he does, you really never know. Nick Bolton, I'm expecting him to be an absolute star in this game. And we mentioned how big that Eagles offensive line is, how big that run game is going to be, obviously. I think he's going to be the biggest key for this Kansas City defense because all year,
Mhm.
really in these last 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, is can the Eagles effectively run the football into the second level? If they can get past that opening seal, it's going to be Nick Bolton and his guys in the linebacking level. They're going to have to stop Saquon Barkley from ripping off 50, 60-yard runs like we saw him do in his first carry against Washington, right? So getting into that second level is the key for Philadelphia, and then limiting those big chunk plays in the second level is going to be huge for Kansas City. So obviously a two-way street there, sort of. One's got to avoid it, one's got to keep it rolling. He had 3 sacks and an interception this season, knows what to do in the turnover battle, and obviously has been a big-time leader and captain on a great all-around Chiefs defense this year. Nick Bolton is my key player.
Yeah, and I had Nick Bolton last week against Buffalo for basically the same reason, stopping James Cook, and it did work out. Kansas City did end up winning that game, so I do love Nick Bolton. Obviously, his game is amazing. Now, going back to this, now that we're almost done with the actual Super Bowl recap, Josh, are you happy with the Aaron Glenn hire?
Oh, absolutely, man. And I could go on about this for a while. You can check out my channel for a
Yeah.
full in depth recap. But first of all, yes, I think it was the best head coach the Jets had suited for them and that was available on the open market. He's a motivating guy. He's a defensive minded guy, which is what I really wanted to bring into play here. And he's done great things with the staff around him. Hired Tanner Engstrand as his offensive coordinator, who was the passing game coordinator under Ben Johnson and the Lions this season, and we know how good that team was. He brought in Steve Wilkes, who was out of the league this year, but had stints as Carolina interim head coach, Arizona head coach, and San Francisco defensive coordinator last year in the Super Bowl. Kind of get fired after that as sort of a scapegoat, and he was out of the
Mhm.
league this season. But I think it's an absolute great hire. He's got 20 years of NFL defensive coordinating to his resume, so it doesn't get much more qualified than that. And you bring in Darren Moogie at the general manager position, and I'm kind of doing an all-around Jet off-season
Yeah.
recap here in the next 30 seconds. But this is a guy that has never had an official role. He's never been uh, the higher up. This is his first time as GM. He's only ever been an assistant or a scout before. So basically, I think it's great to start young, give a guy a fresh start. Obviously, he's going to have a short leash when it's your first time making the big time decisions. You are going to have your ups, but you are certainly going to have your downs, and it's all about if those downs are going to be bigger than the ups. So for Darren Moogie, that's a big time hire. For Aaron Glenn, I couldn't be more happy. I think it was the absolute perfect hire. I think he fits the bill for the Jets. The motto in New York is all gas, no brake. And I really do think Aaron Glenn brings that as a former Jet player himself, might I add. Thanks for the question.
Obviously, there's been a lot of news going around with a lot of different sports. Um, the coaching carousel in the NFL, which is almost done at this point. Of course, NBA trade deadline, which ended earlier today. That's why I'm rocking the Memphis hat. Shout out to one of the newest Washington Wizards, Marcus Smart, coming from
Mm,
Memphis. Um, thank goodness Johnny Davis is out of here. But you know, besides that, we got to head over to the weekly wrap now. I actually have two questions for you.
okay,
So I'll start with the first one. I'll let you go, and then I'll add the second one
sounds good.
after that. Let's get right into the first one. What is the best performance Saquon could have where the Chiefs would still be satisfied? And I know that's kind of a weirdly worded question, but I'm basically saying what is the most he could do? What is the most amount of scrimmage yards he could have? The most amount of touchdowns he could have where Kansas City would still feel like they did a good job in containing him?
Well, do a good job containing him is interesting.
Mhm.
And do you mean that Kansas City is going to feel satisfied? Because they're going to feel satisfied with nothing if they win. So you're saying the Chiefs still have to win, correct?
Yeah, I'm saying
Or
that the
just
Chiefs
being
have
happy about what they did in the run game? Okay.
I don't know if the Chiefs necessarily have to win, but they could say, like, Saquon we didn't lose because Saquon Barkley had 300 rushing yards in this game, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, that's a impactful question because
Mhm.
the Eagles offense really revolves around him. So I think even if the Chiefs do a good job to start off the game defending the run, I think the Eagles will continue to feed him the ball. But with that being said, I think that you got it. He can't be a multi touchdown scorer. He can't be. I mean, he's going to get his one, um, and you got to hope and pray that it's not on a long run, and that um and that he just beat you once. But if Saquon's in the end zone more than once, that becomes a true problem, not only because of the score, but what Philadelphia's game plan is going to become, especially if they take the lead. You know they can 20 play drive and milk 10 minutes
Mhm.
off the clock
Yeah.
if they just continue to feed it to Saquon and he continues to move the chains. That is something that can happen. So for me, for the Chiefs, it's got to be one touchdown or
Mhm.
less. I think
Yeah.
zero is
Yeah.
completely unrealistic, but you got to keep them out of the end zone. And I think if you hold them 140 yards or less, I think you're going to be satisfied because if you go out there and you hold Saquon to under 140 yards and under one touchdown, Philadelphia is not good enough to beat you. Come on, Matt. Look me dead in the eye and how good Kansas City offense is, how good their defense is. If unless Saquon goes two touchdowns, 200
Mhm.
yards, I don't think this Eagles team has it to beat the Chiefs. And look, the Eagles were this close to winning last time without Saquon Barkley. Now you add Saquon Barkley, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, they win by 10 because of how big of a difference maker he is. But if Kansas City limits him and that takes away from the rest of their offense, I could see Kansas City winning this pretty easily if Saquon stays under 140 and one touchdown or less.
Yeah, and I mean, before last week with the Commanders, I was saying, 100 yards and a touchdown would be absolutely amazing. That's the best situation. 122 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that's including the Eagles putting in Will Shipley, who also started cooking us in his limited playing time because Saquon Barkley could have easily gotten 200 rushing yards in that game if Philadelphia wanted him to. Now, moving over to your question before I ask my final one.
Yeah, this is kind of going back to one of those, I think, three chats ago from Timothy. He said 27-24, Eagles kicker
Yeah.
misses a game tying field goal. And that's what I want to bring up special teams because Jake Elliott
Mhm,
has been terrible in these playoffs, and he's been terrible down the
mhm.
stretch. And I mentioned it earlier in the injury report. Not sure if this will stay true all the way up to game day, but the Chiefs have their punter Matt Ariza, who is sick. And he's also their holder. So that really messes up the snap operation when you're bringing in a new guy to completely, kickers in the NFL are very particular. They want their ball in the same spot with the same, exactly the same rotated when they let the ball fly. How much could special teams really impact this game is my question. Could it be a huge difference maker, or
Oh,
will it
yeah.
just be one of those things where we'll look back on this game and say, sure, they had problems there, but they really should have focused somewhere else?
No, I mean, special teams will be a massive, deciding factor in this game. Remember that Kadarius Toney punt return, 2 Super Bowls ago? I
Yeah,
mean, that was
set him up at like the
what.
25.
Yeah, that was no, it was like the 5-yard line. That was one of the main reasons that Kansas City ended up winning that game, obviously. Jake Elliott, as you mentioned, um, his extra point percentage against Los Angeles was 33, against Green Bay, it was 50. He has not been great. Um,
He's been terrible. I mean,
didn't
that
yeah,
just
didn't
can't happen.
didn't make a field goal last week against Washington, I don't believe. Um, but no, it's been rough for Jake Elliott, and as I said in my prediction, 2-point game. You miss a field goal. If Kansas City misses a field goal in this game, that could be the deciding factor on whether they win or lose this one. Um, Special teams isn't going to be the main part of this game. It's obviously the high-powered Philadelphia offense and Patrick Mahomes on the other side. But special teams in any game is going to be that thing that you don't expect to be the deciding factor until it becomes the deciding factor, if that makes sense. There
Yeah.
will be a big special teams play that will be a big momentum booster, even if it's just like a 40-yard, kick return. That could change the course of the entire game. Obviously, it's at a neutral location, so there's not going to be any uh momentum really for the most part, I guess. Maybe,
Yeah. Yeah,
there
not
could be a
really.
lot of
It's just a
fantasy,
celebrity
Yeah.
show.
So I think that if teams can kind of build that momentum for themselves off these big special teams plays, special teams and defense are the things that build the most momentum. and I think that is, you know, gonna be crucial in determining whether this could be if this is a one possession game, that's gonna tell you who wins this game.
Yeah, we won't be able to see any Pat McAfee surprise onside kicks, unfortunately, with the new rule. But other than
No,
that,
we
special teams
we
should
will
be
not.
great.
Mhm. Yeah, hopefully we get some good kick returns. Hopefully we don't see too many
Yeah.
touchbacks in this one. Now going over to more of a pop culture question, betting odds for Travis Kelsey proposing after the game if Kansas City wins. Because I'm just going to be annoying and I'm going to ask you that question. And I'm sure that you've seen that question floating around the internet, but I haven't heard your opinion yet. So I got to ask you.
Um, I'll take it to my inside sources, which is
Mm,
nobody, and say that
You got a little Adam Schefter here
they're
reporting.
breaking news. And
Yeah.
say that I mean, assuming their relationship is serious enough and they both want to go for it. Um, I don't really see a better time to do it than three-peating and
Mhm.
winning the Super Bowl with confetti flying over your head. Now, they may have already planned this if they win, and if not, they do it in a private setting, but they may have already planned this, so we might all just be playing right into their little card game. Um, and like Travis Kelsey's got the ring there arranged and stuff to surprise Taylor, but if I had to say, you want me to make a betting line, I will say the Chiefs have to win, so that factors into it. Wait, is the bet void if the Chiefs lose? Because
No,
then there's no chance.
we're gonna say in this situation the Chiefs 100% win. What's the
Oh,
betting line?
okay,
Mhm.
okay. We will go. We'll go. We'll go plus 200. I think
Oh,
there's a 1 in 2 chance. Yeah. I mean, I
that's
don't. I
fair.
don't really know. It
Mhm.
seems right to me.
Yeah, I mean, Commanders cornerback Jeremy Reeves proposed after one of the Commanders' playoff wins. I think it was against Tampa Bay.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I also don't know how, as you mentioned, how serious this relationship is.
Yeah.
I
We need a
sound
beat
annoying
reporter.
saying that. Um, but I'll stick to football. But I mean, like, I don't know if it makes sense for two of the biggest celebrities to get married in the middle of a football field.
Yeah,
Sounds like Josh wants to be the next Adam Schefter. This just in, Josh has the
that
betting odds for Taylor Swift getting proposed to at plus 200, considering the Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
I don't know, Matt. That sounded pretty good to me.
It did sound pretty good. We'll see what happens. Obviously, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
Absolutely not. Go. I mean, absolutely go eat some nachos this Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. Go eat
they're
some
going,
nachos.
but they're going down your draft board. Are you still like? Has that like?
I
Or
I mean, I don't
are
know.
you
I
off
think we
them
could
now?
I think we could trade back. There might
Mhm,
just be some people uh in the market
mhm.
for a good couch seat,
So
right?
like,
Like you don't want to be the guy that's getting booted off the couch. I mean, is it a move your feet, lose your seat situation, or once you're there for kickoff, you're reserved for the rest of the game? Because that really skyrockets you. I might have to trade up to that number one overall pick if we're talking about permanent seating
wow.
situations. You do not want to be in the corner, like having a weird view of the TV with the glare coming through your window, depending on what time coast you live on.
Or
You could be on the West Coast, sun will be setting right in your eyes trying to look at the TV.
you're going really in detail, and I love it.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want the nachos, you can trade you can trade down a little bit, and that
Yeah.
way, if they get taken, they're gone. But if they're still there, you're getting some good value.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're watching this, make sure you do enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. I'll be enjoying my Kendrick Lamar halftime show, and that's about it.
Mm.
The game itself, kind of whatever. Makes you wonder how long our normal tailgate shows would be if we had 15 games. If we're going 50 minutes on a single game. I mean,
Uh, Good thing we don't
what?
cover every Titans
Yeah.
Jaguars game like the Super Bowl. We'd be here for a while. We might get hungry. We might need
I
some.
mean,
We might need to trade back for some nachos at that point.
yeah. 50 minutes times 15 games would be 12 and a half hours. 12 hours, 30 minutes. That would be a rough Sunday. We'd have to start Sunday at 12:30 a.m. just to get it over before the games start. But yeah, I do like going more in depth when there's less games, obviously. Did really enjoy this tailgate show. I know it was a little bit before the game. I know you have some scheduling conflicts, obviously. Nice to have it though. And if you made it up to this point, can't thank you enough for watching. Make sure you go check out Josh's YouTube channel, Josh's Sports Report, as well. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe both on his channel and my channel. Again, I'm Matthew Heiserman alongside Josh Wolfer for your Highlight Haven NFL Tailgate Show, Super Bowl 59 special edition. And as always, we will see you next time.